Good morning. Today is Friday, the 17th day of Sivan, and we continue in chapter 6 in Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna, the gates of unity and faith in the book of Tanya. I want to start today with looking into a verse in the Torah that the Alter Rebbe quoted in the beginning of this chapter and the beginning of this part of the Tanya, Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna. And this is the verse that talks about we should take to heart that Hashem, that God, Hashem is Elokim. And I want to look at it and we'll see this in the context of the meaning of this part of this verse. So here we go. If you can see, it goes, this is Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to the people, the Jewish people. It has been clearly demonstrated to you that the Lord alone is God. There is none besides him. And it goes on and on. From the heavens, he let you hear his voice to discipline you. On earth, he let you see his great fire, and from amidst that fire, you heard his words. And it goes on, and because he loved your fathers, he chose their heirs after them. He himself, in his great might, led you out of Egypt. To drive from your path nations greater and more populous than you, to take you into their land and assign it to you as a heritage, as it is still the case. And then he says, this is the verse that the Alter Rebbe focuses on. Know therefore this day, and keep in mind, Ki Hashem hu Elokim, that the Lord alone is God. B'shamayim imal, v'la'aretz mitachat, in heaven above and on earth below, ein od, there is no other. The way we understand this verse, in a simple terms, is Hashem is telling you, look around, look what's happening. Hashem showed you, he came, he revealed himself to you, all the miracles that he did to you, how much he loved you, and you should know, you realize that he alone is God. Lord alone is God. In heaven and on earth below. And the Alter Rebbe, in the beginning of this Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna, has asked the question, what exactly is God trying to tell us? Is the Torah trying to tell us that you have to put to heart, you take to heart? You should know there is no other God underneath the earth. Is this something that somebody would think, someone in his right mind? And here the Alter Rebbe went on to explain that there's a different reading in this. And that there is v'yadata yom, you should know, Ki Hashem hu Elokim. He says, what you need to know is that Avaya, Hashem, Avaya, is the name of God. Elokim is another name of God. He says, these two names that represent different aspects of God, they're really one. That's what he's saying. Ki Hashem hu Elokim. That Hashem is Elokim. And when you know that they are really one, then you realize that in heaven above and the earth below, there is none else. Not that there is no other God, but nothing else really exists. What does it mean doesn't exist? Exists with our perspective. But the true existence is the existence of Hashem. Now, what does it mean, the two names, Avaya Elokim? So this is what we explained in these few chapters in the beginning of Shaar Hayichud VeHaemuna. Explained what is the name of Avaya. is the force of Hashem's force of creation. Elohim is the nature, the tzimtzum, the constriction, the filtering of the light. And we explained that really the concealment is part of the creation. And the concealment is only for us, not to him. The tzimtzum doesn't affect God. It's not even concealing to God. And we said the example, we say, Ein etzem mastir el etzem. An essence cannot conceal an essence. You cannot conceal yourself with yourself. If everything and anything is God, then no matter what, the tzimtzum, the concealment, is him. That itself is also him. So therefore cannot conceal. He cannot be concealed with himself. Concealment is only towards, in our perspective. An example we used in Chassidus is when a teacher tries to teach a little child, a student who is in very limited capabilities of understanding, is teaching him a deep concept with a metaphor. He gives him a story, tells him a story. The child, what does he hear? He hears the story. He doesn't. If the teacher will tell him the depth of his thinking, he's going to be lost. He's going to be overwhelmed. It's not in his capabilities. One day, the child can listen to that same story and hear much deeper ideas within the story. What about the teacher? The teacher tells a story, but for him, the teacher, the story doesn't conceal. He tells the story, but within the story, he has everything. So the tzimtzum, the concealment of this world, is only in our perspective, not in Hashem's perspective. Hashem cannot conceal an essence with himself. An example also in halacha is, it says when we have to have a head covering, we put a yarmulke, we put a hat. What if you don't have a yarmulke? If somebody puts his head on your head, also can cover, and you can make the bracha. But you cannot cover your own head with your own hand, because you need, in order to cover, you need something else, not yourself. So here, this is what the Alter Rebbe says, when we see things from a higher perspective. And this is something that really takes a lot of work. To really focus and see things from a higher perspective. See things from God's perspective as much as humanly possible. This is Vayadata Hayom Vashevot Alavavecha. You should know this and you should take it to heart. Ki Hashem Hu Elokim. The name Avaya, which is the supernatural, which is above limitation, the unlimited. He is Elohim. It's the same as Elohim. And we explained that within the two aspects, they're included from each other. When you have the force of giving and the force of limiting, they seem to be two opposite forces. But really, if you look from a higher perspective, they are intertwined. They both complement each other. Just like when I have a king, let's say king rules a country. In order to rule the country, he has many, many different ministers. Each one represents a different aspect. And sometimes the ministers, they come and they have different agendas, and they contradict, their agendas clash with each other. But still, you need them both. The king sees everything from above. And when it comes, really, ultimately, they both need to carry out the king's will. So in the king's will, everything is included. In the higher perspective, they're all one. You can see things from a higher perspective, just like two children. They're a siblings rivalry. Each one is right. So the father looks at them and sees both. So in a higher perspective, everything is really one. So let's see inside what the Alter Rebbe says. Says the Alter Rebbe. והנה, מאיסקללוס המידוס, זו בזו, נראה לעין, דאיו וגרמו אחד שאין מידוסף. From the mutual inclusions of the attributes, the opposite natures, notwithstanding, is evident that he and his causations, what it causes to things to be, meaning his attributes are one. Hashem and his attributes are one. Since they are in complete unity with him, they therefore unite with each other and are comprised of each other. What makes them together? What makes the chesed, the gvura, becoming one? Is the fact that they come from something which is higher, from Hashem himself. They're their own one. As Eliyahu says in a passage that we say every Friday before Kabbalah Shabbos, says from the Zohar, it says ve'ant hu de kosher loin umeyachad loin v'chulu. In the Pasach Eliyahu, we say from the Tikkun Zohar, and you are he who binds them, meaning the spheres and the attributes, binds them together and unites them. And apart from you, there is no unity among those attributes above. This is what Alter Rebbe explains now. Now we understand the meaning of this verse, of this pasuk that we began with this class. A whole new perspective, a whole new understanding. This then is the meaning of the scriptural phrase, and take it unto your heart that Avaya is Elokim. It's not just saying that, take to heart that our God is the only God. No. It says Avaya u Elokim. Whatever we explained until now, Avaya. The force of giving, the force of bringing everything into existence. He's the Elokim. He's also the force of constriction, the Tzimtzum. Pirush, what this means, Shnei Shemos Elu Ein Echad Mamash. That is, these two names are actually one. So, although that Avaya represents Chesed and revelation, and Elokim represents Tzimtzum and concealment, they are nevertheless truly one. Shegam Shem Elokim. Because even the name Elokim, which conceals and contracts the light of the divine force that is responsible for creation, this is a quality of chesed, as we explained earlier in the previous lessons, that this is the kindness in order for us to be able to exist. Hashem contracted this powerful light. Kemoy Shem Avaya, just like the name Avaya, Yudke Vavke, which is the force of creation. Mishum Shemidoisav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Misyachadois Imay BeYichud Gomer. For the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He, unite with Him in a complete unity. Vehu u'shmoi echad shemidoisav hein shemoisav. And He and His name are one, for His attributes are His name. This is what we say, that's the point of what we're getting to. The world, the whole world should become one, by recognizing that Hashem and His name, they're all one. Meaning the name which represents something which is outside of Him. They're really one with Hashem. The attribute of Hashem is really one. Ve'im came. And since this is so, When we understand that Elokim is one with Havaya, then we'll know the rest of the verse. Mimele teida. Then you would know Shebashamayim mimal v'la'oretz mitochas ein oid. You will consequently know that in heaven above or on earth and on earth below there is ein od. There exists nothing else besides Hashem. Pirush. What does it mean? Shegam ha'oretz hachumris sheniris yesh gamu le'ein koil. Which means that even the material earth, which appears to everyone's eyes to be actually existing, it is not an utter nothingness in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He. And as we said before, because the name Elokim obscures and contracts the light of the life force only for the nether creatures, only for the creatures below. Veloi legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but not for the Holy One, blessed be He, me'acha shehu u'shmo Elokim echad, being that He and His name Elokim are one. So the name Elokim cannot possibly act as a concealment for Him. Velochein, and therefore, gama oretz u'metachas la'oretz ein ayin ve'efes mamesh legabe HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, even the earth and that which is below it are not an utter nothingness in relation to the Holy One, blessed be He. Ve'ein onikrois b'shem klal afilu b'shem oyit. Therefore, even the earth and that which is below it, they are nothing. They're not even called by any name at all, not even by the name Od. Now here, the Alter Rebbe gives another explanation in this last word of the pasuk. The last word is Ein Od. There's nothing else. The word Od in Hebrew, the Alter Rebbe comes to explain, is not just saying that there's nothing else. The word Od also means secondary. Meaning, he wants to say that the world is not just not existing as a self-existence, but it is not even secondary to Hashem's existence. Ein Od. Where do we see that the word Od is secondary? So the Alter Rebbe brings two examples. One example, so again, they're not even named Od else, which would indicate as a subordinate status. As in the statement of our sages of blessed memory, Yehuda ve'od likra. There's a verse in the Torah requires secondary substantiations. Meaning, in the Gemara brings a certain law, and it says, how do we know this law? And the Gemara brings a verse in the Torah. Then the Gemara says, V'od, and another thing, that it says, and Beyehuda, it says in Beyehuda also, it says in the Yehuda, in the place, the area of Judea, there's a custom to do so and so. And the Gemara says, Yehuda v'od likra, that Yehuda you bring a secondary support to the custom, to the verse. Does the verse need support? So the point over here, what Alter Rebbe is trying to bring out, is that the word ve'od means secondary, like a support, like something which is has a secondary status. So when we say ein od, that the word is not even a secondary status. Another example, when we see the concept of od, which that means secondary, is from a verse in the Tehillim. And when it says, "V'keguf shu tofei laneshama v'chayus shebeteiche," this is the case with the body, which is subordinate to the soul and life force within it. And therefore, the body also is called od. Where do we see that a body is called od? Which means secondary, that a body is secondary to the soul. Where do we see it? So it says, "V'zeu shekasuv, ahalala Hashem b'chayoi azamro ulekai ve'oidi." This is the meaning of the verse. I will praise Havaya with my life, and I will sing Elokai to my Lord be'odi. So what does it mean be'odi? Submit my life refers to the soul. Be'odi, with my od, refers to my body, because the body is secondary to the soul. Sha'chaim nimshachim mishem Havaya, and for the life, the soul is derived from the name Havaya. V'ha'od shu haguf hatofel mishem Elokim, and the od, which is the body, it's subordinate from the name Elokim. So here we say that the body, sometimes they compare God and the world to a body and a soul. Even in the sages, they bring it says, Ma anashama, memalis is a guf, kacha kadosh baruch hu memalis ha'olam. Just like the soul fills the body, so too does God fill the world. Here the Alter Rebbe says that it's not the same. That the body and soul are not even a good example to God filling the world. Why? Because the body and soul, after all, the soul is secondary to the body. So meaning that the body itself has also its existence, except that it is secondary to the body. Because after all, the soul does not create the body. The soul only animates the body. But when we're talking about Hashem, God filling the world, Hashem makes the world. It brings the world into existence. So therefore, that example is not a perfect example. So you can ask, how come our sages bring this example? Because this refers to the lower expression of godliness, which is compared to the soul filling the body. But when we're talking about the essence of Hashem, that example is not a perfect example. That's what Alter Rebbe concludes here. It says, "Lefi neshama eina mehava guf me'ayin leyesh." For the soul does not bring the body into existence ex nihilo, something for nothing. It only provides it with life. The body is therefore called od, meaning secondary to the soul, inasmuch as it is the soul that provides the body with life. Aval HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Hashem, the Blessed One, the Holy One, blessed be He, who brings everything into existence, ex nihilo. Everything is absolutely nullified in relation to Him. Just as the light of the sun is absolutely nullified in the sun. So this is the perspective that the Alter Rebbe says. This is what it requires. This is what we need to take to heart. This is what we need to work hard to understand. And now we understand why we have to work hard. When we read the verse in this way, we understand. It's interesting also the idea of, Alter Rebbe explains how loving a fellow Jew. says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," love your fellow Jew like you love yourself. How is it possible to love somebody else like you love yourself? And the answer is no, it's not. It's not possible, except when you look at things in a higher perspective. The Torah teaches us, guides us to see things from the perspective of godliness. That if you look, we see ourselves from our perspective. I am myself, I am my body, I have my desires, and therefore it contradicts to somebody else's interests. But when you look from the higher perspective, how we are nullified, what is the real existence is the soul, godliness. That takes a lot of work. When you see things in that perspective, you can love another person like you love yourself. Because when you think, what is your true self? It is Hashem. It is the neshama, the soul. And therefore, the other person is just like me. We only complement each other. So this is the end of today's shir. Thank you so much for joining. And wishing you all a good Shabbos. And we'll see you on Sunday morning. Bezat Hashem, 9 a.m. Any questions we can take now?